All right. Hey, everyone. We are back for another masterclass. Doing a little adventurous this time as I am joining as a guest and not a host and don't have all the controls. So hopefully this goes well. But today is episode 9 of our masterclass, and I'm joined today by Impartner's very own Gary Sabin. He is our fearless leader and VP of products at Impartner, and joining us from Washington State, right, Gary?
That's true. That's true. We're here in actually sunny Seattle, believe it or not. It's been beautiful weather.
You caught the second day of the year that's going to be out sunny.
Good.
Very nice. So anybody else is joining us live, appreciate you guys being here again, and let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. I'm at home base myself in Draper, Utah. But so as we get going, Gary, in case there is happens to be somebody that's living under a rock and doesn't know who you are, you want to give a little intro of about yourself, whether your likes, your fears, your favorite sports team, so we know whether we should hate you or not.
Mm.
Sort of things.
Gemini, long walks on the beach, all that. Sure.
Yes.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Trevor, for the intro. As he mentioned, Gary Sabin, head of product here at Partner. Been a fairly long tenured. It's coming up on 8 years now with the company. So there are still a few things left if you don't like about the platform that I'll just say were in place before I got here. But if there's anything you like, then perhaps that's my fault a little bit. So background in management consulting and software. Been bounced around through several startups, fintech, and things like that, and landed and found a really nice home here at Impartner after seeing the ways that some of the other prior companies go to market, or maybe successfully or not so successfully, and there's almost ubiquitous need for platforms that can actually help facilitate those partner relationships and really make them the breadwinning sort of revenue streams that they ought to be in today's world.
Very cool. Well, yeah, I brought you on today because the topic that we're going to cover is timed, just happens to be timed as we're releasing a new product talking about it. What a coincidence. So, yeah, referral programs and how to, best practices around that, what we've done with our product launch. I wanted you to talk a little bit why we did that and how it all fits together. So, as we run through this, we keep it informal here on Masterclass, but also want to make sure that we are covering key points and making it valuable sessions to up level the knowledge of all the partnership folks that follow us out there. So we'll start off with why referral programs are important. Why was it important enough that we wanted to incorporate a product release or update into our platform, and then we'll go through some common attributes of a successful referral program. Anytime we are building something out in our product, we essentially force ourselves to become experts in the area. We want to know everything about it so we can speak authoritatively and also make sure we build the right things that are going to be useful. And then finally, tie that into how our solution helps and some Q&A at the end. Sound good? On board?
Works for me.
Great. Okay, so first of all, with that why a referral program, as I was on the sales engineer side, and even as I switched over to product marketing, I myself have been with Impartner for 8 years as a boomerang. We've kind of always talked about how we support referral partners and had it within the deal registration motions and processes. So why do you think it was important to create specifically a referral application built separate from what we used to do with incorporating it into deal registration?
Yeah, very, very question. It really just mirrors the sort of the shift, I think, in industry, and maybe it's not even a shift, it's more of sort of an awakening or an acknowledgement of the power and frankly the fundamental difference in referrals, right? So the entire point of working with partnerships and indirect routes to market is that you can benefit from relationships that you as a brand simply don't have or can't do at a macro sort of global marketing level, right? They're going to have those relationships are going to have industry specific knowledge, those kinds of things. And some of the traditional partner types, which of course are very important, your resellers, your VARs, your MSPs, those sorts of folks, they have those relationships. But there are also several partners or potential partners out there who have those relationships, but maybe don't have the entire set of capabilities needed to fully transact that all the way through. Maybe they have great relationships, but maybe only a casual association with you as a vendor or a brand. And so it's about how can we actually start to leverage those in a better way instead of sort of leaving these on the table, right? So when you have really only option for either resell this thing all the way through, or there's really no opportunity for us as a brand to bring that in. And there's also, I think, just this widening intent, if you will, in terms of the definition of what constitutes a partner, if you will, right? Especially when you get into sort of affiliates and those kinds of spaces where that's a more formal, structured relationship for actually bringing your product to market and actually bringing revenue and conversions and ultimately to deals. Whereas like a referral perhaps can sometimes be considered a little bit more of a passive thing. So typically, both a referral and affiliate, they are earlier in the overall buying process. When you look at when any customer does, regardless of whether it's a good or service or product of any kind, they are making a lot of important decisions along the overall buying journey, right? First, where they're sort of becoming educated, they're kind of seeking a little bit of background knowledge about the early selection, and most of the classic traditional resale type partners really are only involved in the last phase of the overall buying process, where they're actually in the decision making, right? So there may be 20 or 30 touch points all along that where they're influenced, but only 2 or 3 at the very tail end where they're making the decision, where your classic traditional partners live. So typically those earlier influence points have been the domain of marketing teams, right? So they are trying to leverage influencers, or if it's a product that is sort of lends itself well to an affiliate type approach, they're working with those kinds of folks to sort of bring the credibility and the audience of those people into the potential buying group. But that has been left to the domain of marketing, and I think channel heads and those who are running partner ecosystems are taking this broader ecosystem type of a view and realizing those are formal relationships in many cases that should be brought into the overall partner relationship view, and those should be managed as intentionally and as diligently and deliberately as any other traditional type of partner. So that's I think where you were seeing a lot of the shift in mindset and paradigm into this more larger ecosystem view of everybody who touches the buying persona end to end, and how do we bring them formally into the program and give them all of the same capabilities and attention and the synergy of success tools and things like that to make sure that they're able to do so.
Okay, so on this second point, I did a decent amount of research trying to figure out how to talk about this in the market. And by the way, I appreciate that we wore the same shirts. I didn't realize that. Dark short sleeve, button up. All right. So referral versus affiliate. What I found out there, because I wanted to talk in a way that people understood. This was a bit of a new area. I just talked about referral partners, but affiliate, I wasn't as familiar with that term. And what I mostly found, there's definitions all over the place, but the most common way that I saw it being talked about is referral is somebody that's tied to your business in some way. So it's a customer, an employee, or a tight partner of your company is referred to as a referral association or partnership. Whereas affiliate is some third party, it's an influencer that's talking about you in some way, but not directly tied. Is that similar to how you see those definitions?
Yeah, I think there's also a little bit of sort of the nature of what the sort of success outcome is for those two, right? So an affiliate really is targeting conversions per se, rather than maybe the raw leads. An affiliate is also typically I would say all affiliates are partners, but not all partners are affiliates, right? Where meaning affiliate is generally someone who that's kind of it's part of their business model. They are building an audience. They are building specifically that hopefully fits within, say, a particular customer profile, something like that. And their goal is to funnel conversions, and they may be potential buyers and things that they don't necessarily know. They haven't necessarily developed a relationship. They're sort of doing this very transactionally and at larger volumes. Whereas a referral is going to be someone who has a more specific and perhaps, for lack of better term, sort of intimate or closer relationship with the potential buyer, right? They're, in a classic sense, they're a friend, or they're a company that they've already worked closely with, those kinds of things, versus sort of this sort of informal, bring as many as you can sort of approach. So probably those are the two different sort of angles. The other thing with an affiliate versus a referral is you're look at a referral, you're typically, they're bringing to bear their sort of credibility at a macro level. And you're almost associating with their brand, because oftentimes that can be getting into more of like an influencer type of a setting, right? So they have a brand that pairs nicely with yours. And that's part of what they're bringing to the table, is that credibility with those eyeballs, and particularly at larger volumes.
Got it. Well, we're about halfway through our time and 2 bullet points in, so doing well. So let's see, who owns the relationship, who owns the program and relationships? Like you said, it's generally a marketing approach, but then, all affiliates are partners, like you said. So you do get the partnership team involved a lot of times.
And that's really what I think we're seeing in trend, and what we are suggesting as a best practice. So for folks who are running traditional partner programs and just starting to have this more ecosystem mindset, realizing that really should be a relationship that should be managed by alliances and partnerships teams. And so that's really that we're suggesting and encouraging folks on the channel side to actually be taking a more active role in that relationship, not just leaving it to marketing.
Yeah. All right. So the tough one is, what challenges are companies going to run into when they're facing, what are they going to face when running referral programs? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I see that in a lot of ways they can actually avoid some problems in sort of the attribution and toe stepping that happens between maybe direct sales and indirect sales, where the referrals is a little bit more passive to that. And I think a lot of the challenges really are in the program definition and in the sort of partner selection and recruitment. So I think if I remember from some of the pre-discussion, you have another slide that kind of outlines some of those things. And that's where I think a lot of the challenges actually come into play, and where the essential sort of pre-planning is important to ensuring that that's set up for success to start with.
Yeah, a lot of the challenges are covered indirectly, I guess, in the way of how we're saying these are the attributes of a successful program. If you don't have those clearly defined objectives, you're going to run into problems, right? And each one of these, it's kind of like the challenges are if you're not doing this, essentially. Yeah. So, and that's what I've seen is that first one is super important. Before you're buying tech, before you're even starting to go out to market with the referral program, you have to get internal alignment, get everybody on the same page. Okay, how are we going to reward? How are we going to run all this? And just be super tight about it, and make sure all departments involved, the marketing team, the channel team, they're all on the same page.
Yeah. And especially, I think, sort of figuring out the right flavor between the referral and affiliate, and where on that spectrum, for example, makes sense given the nature of your product, right? If you have a very easily sort of transactional swipe a credit card and go type of product, right? That gives you a different sort of set of options in terms of where on the spectrum you want to be, versus a product that is, very, very large enterprise scale, highly needs to be configured, very almost bespoke, those kinds of things. So the nature of the product, and ensuring that you have alignment organization, that you have a product and a packaging and an actually sales motion that will lend itself to, say, an affiliate versus a referral, for example. The other thing is identifying the right partners. A lot of times your referral base can come from areas you don't expect it, right? So existing customers is a great pool from which to recruit referral type partners, because they're going to have, again, those highly influential individual relationships. And they are also going to be, sort of more primed and open to a more sort of passive way of doing that is less involved on the upfront. So you can then having to go all the way down the whole process of fully registering and training, all those sorts of things. So you can kind of do this incremental ad hoc, if you will, and take advantage of the opportunistic referral opportunities that are going to exist within your customer base, even within your existing traditional partners. And I think the other thing on the identification of the right partners is being sure that you're intentional about the ideal customer profile that you are trying to access and unlock, right? So for every referral / affiliate, I'll kind of just use the term interchangeably because I don't think they're quite as binary as they used to be. There's a lot of things on the spectrum there in terms of how you do that, but that they are going to have access to and influence over the ideal customer profile that you're looking to. And you have to be a little bit careful because, sort of the whole point of these sorts of programs is accessing buying groups and maybe niches or markets in which you may not have already a sufficient amount of penetration to develop the revenue pipeline that you want for your direct efforts. And so in so doing, every time you add in a new affiliate or referring partner, they're probably going to bring in an audience that may be slightly different than that. And what can happen is if their whole incentive is to sort of the conversion and transactional sort of numbers and sending as many folks as they can that direction, you can end up getting a lot of folks bought into your platforms or your products that may not be exactly the right fit. And that can start to have challenges upstream, speaking from a product management perspective, right, where you're now trying to make a product fit a wider range of buying personas, maybe other than they were initially intended. So you have to be a little bit careful about that and very intentional about saying, we'd like to target an ideal customer profile that fits this mold, this definition, in this market, this region, whatever, and then identify some folks who will have access and relationships to those, and ensuring that they are credible, that they have sufficient audience or influence group or whatever those things be, and somebody that you want to associate your brand with.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these points are very dependent upon each other. Like, offering the right incentives, that really depends on what is the right type of partner, right? So based off of that right profile of the partners you're trying to attract is really going to drive what kind of incentives that they're going to want and what really motivates them and getting in their head. And, it's a competitive atmosphere out there. So you need something that's clearly defined. I know that's a big one is, as part of that first bullet, as part of your defining your objectives and your sales goals, basically filling out all the pieces of a referral agreement. Okay, as part of this is what's expected of you. And at these points, we're going to reward you when you first refer a qualified lead. And then when it closes, you get another piece. What are all those percentages? What is that? And so you're establishing those clear program guidelines, because the worst thing you can do is have it be confusing, have people fighting over, they think they should be paid one thing and you think it's the other. And that just creates a whole mess you want to avoid. So everything in writing up front, they sign it on the agreement, there's no confusion, is a huge piece to success there.
Absolutely. I think the other thing is matching the incentive to the nature of the product and the scale of the audience that they bring to the table, as well as acknowledging the risk involved, right? It's risk. Just think, from an interpersonal level, referring somebody to something. I mean, even recommending a restaurant, you feel a little bit of investment in that. You really hope that they like it, right? And you're not going to sort of compromise that over a relatively sort of small fee, right? And so you that is a little bit of a risk that they're taking, in some ways from a personal network and relationship perspective. And it's not one size fits all. Oftentimes people will do referrals on sort of a flat rate, like maybe it's $500 per referral, something of that nature, or successful referral. But there are probably some sort of a spectrum of, if they're referring a very large enterprise deal that's going to close and be in the millions of dollars, there may have a higher level of involvement or higher incentive to do that than if it's a maybe smaller, more transactional, higher volume sort of thing. So ensuring that you have some sort of perhaps for different areas or different markets or ICPs that you're trying to address and those type of referrals, you may have a different incentive structure that better aligns with that rather than the one size fits all approach, because it'll incentivize some and really not be enough to interest others to take that step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the different types, I think that ties into the marketing assets and the training. You can have personalized training, maybe, you have somebody that says, well, I'm just an influencer and I share it out on my social media or whatnot.
Mhm.
Versus more the traditional partner that's working with your customers and recommending services and whatnot. So, yeah, equipping your partners and giving them the necessary marketing materials so they know how to speak about your product, because they're not experts on it most likely. So you're going to want to give them some training, give them some materials, help them help you kind of approach,
Exactly.
and make it very targeted.
They're not just pulling names out of the the white pages, if you will, and phone directory, and just shoving them to you, right? There actually are some conversations that have to be happening. They effectively have to do some level of selling, whether it's formal or not, and ensuring that they have the materials to be able to do that effectively when their potential referrer, if you will, is asking for those things. So acknowledging the reality of that, and making that sure that they're equipped and able to do that.
Yeah.
The other thing that's critical with this, and that third bullet point really I hone in on, because that's part and parcel to the program design that we were talking about earlier, is ensuring that the program is clear up front and stays clear and transparent throughout. Where we hear complaints of folks who have done a referral once and didn't really see what was going on. They didn't quite know, even going in, what to really expect out of that, other than this vague, hey, refer us and you'll somehow benefit from that, right? But the visibility and transparency all the way through, so that they can easily see in as that progresses at any point in time, without having to sort of call and ask, or be waiting, wondering, that they have some sort of a place that they can go in, sort of a pull method, rather than having to do a push kind of a method that way, and see, here's all the things that I'm tracking, that I'm associated with. I know what their status is. I see what they're progressing through. I see maybe areas where, and this can be a benefit to you on the vendor side too, is maybe I know what stage that is. Maybe there's an area in which I can actually help and add another incremental bit of value to that process, rather than just dropping the name off and waiting to see, right? But as they see what's happening with the ultimate disposition of the things that they referred, and they sort of see their little eggs that they gave you hatch and become beautiful birds and fly away, they're going to be more inclined to do that again, versus having it be that black rocks approach, right? And say, hey, thanks, we'll let you know if something happens. So they don't know whether you've just sold a deal and forgotten about them, or they don't know whether the kinds of referrals that they're giving are not going anywhere, or whether they should be doing more of those kinds of things. So the transparency is critical, because you want that positive reinforcement loop, and you want enough transparency and visibility for them to see if the referrals that they're giving are not happening, or not going anywhere, they're getting stuck in a certain stage. Maybe they can think about, maybe I'm talking to the wrong people that I'm bringing to the table here.
Yeah. Right. So just that visibility, it ties into the measuring, the communication, just giving them a way that they can see that progress. That's huge. It's kind of a gamification. It's a motivation, really. Like you said, if it just gets thrown into a black box, I don't feel very involved with that. But a lot of times, it's not just handing it over and being done. Right? There's still that ongoing relationship. Like you said, when you refer that restaurant recommendation, your reputation is on the line in some way, and you want to make sure it's going to go well. So really bringing in that visibility and making them part of the whole process is huge. All right, so I think we spent plenty of time on that. Let's get on. Oh, and of course, you want to use the right tools to manage. Wink. All right, so
You would, Trevor.
let's talk a little bit. What a segue. So let's talk a little bit about how we've deployed this. Did a couple of screenshots there, right? So we have it's separate from our deals object. This is our PX interface that's showing just a dashboard of all the referrals. So whether the partner entered it in themselves through the portal, or it was coming in through the referral link, which let's see, this little guy. So I get a own little personal link that I can send out as I want as a referral partner. Those are all funneling and being attributed to me, and I can see it on my dashboard there. And then you can tie into rewards, which is a big piece of it, right? I'm not just doing this out of the goodness of my own heart. So I know we said we'd leave QA to the end, but I just wanted to call attention to the question that came in here of how much is an attractive incentive these days? What's the average referral fee percentage being paid from a vendor for passing a lead? So I want your thoughts, Gary, but what I've seen is it depends, right? It depends on your business model, what your goals are, etc. There's a lot that just offer a flat commission based off of that lead. Okay, it's a qualified lead or whatnot. And then more the percentage side once it closes, because you want to incentivize the referrals to have it, whether it's a small or a big deal. A bigger deal should be higher incentive. Bring us in the big stuff. There's more value in that. So percentage based makes sense in that regard versus the flat. So whether you're doing percentage at the start, at the beginning, or at the end, or only one at a time, if you're doing an incentive just for the lead, it usually is that flat one because you likely don't have an idea of the value of it, how much it's going to close for at the beginning, but you want to give some sort of an incentive for just providing that in the first place. Lead gen is super expensive. I work on the marketing team at Impartner, so I know how much cost per click and all that stuff can cost. So you're really getting it at a discount. These are usually pretty qualified leads that are coming in from your referrals, so it's worth it.
And that sort of the commission or the the referral fee and those sorts of things, I think that's going to be sort of a sliding scale depending on, as you mentioned, where it's paid. And we actually see some programs that will provide some non-monetary incentive for the actual submission side, right? And then a larger referral fee when and if that turns into booked revenue for the vendor itself, right? So you can give a little bit of a carrot for participating up front. And then if your payout is percentage of revenue and it's not until closure, that'll be a little bit higher than if you were to do a flat rate up front. The other thing is whether the nature of the referral, if that's a passive referral, which one of the things we talked about earlier is it's very important to ensure that these referrals can be generated with the least amount of friction as possible for the referrer, right? Passively versus a referral that's coming in that is a specific known influenced relationship and those kinds of things. I've seen some companies starting to attempt to differentiate between those two because they frankly have a very different expectation for closure rate and oftentimes value as well.
So passive being, active, I enter it myself. Passive, I'm using my refer link that goes to this marketing page that the end lead is filling out themselves. Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly.
Got it. So yeah, with that, this is kind of the sample landing page. Okay, I sent out my personal link. I'm getting these passive leads that people are filling out themselves. It has all the marketing materials. It's co-branded to myself as a partner if I want, or I can just leave that off and have it all the vendors branding. But yeah, it's part of providing the right sales and marketing materials and tools. I couldn't come up with all this wording for the vendor's product myself, so I'm able to leverage this page that they control and have all the leads generated on my behalf that way.
It's all about what's the minimal investment and least amount of friction to just get started, right? Once we got transactional deals coming out of this, then we can follow up and deal with the pleasantries and all those things at the end. But up front, how do I get started with the least amount of investment possible?
Yeah. All right, we are at 30 minutes, but we'll hang out for a little bit if anybody has any additional questions here. We'll go a little bit over time from our usual 30-minute block. Appreciate, Ricardo, your question, by the way. All right, so we got one. What are the plans for future development? Oh, that is a Gary question.
Yeah, a fair one. Two sort of threads here. One is adding to the sort of ease of use tools for the passive generation. So tying even deeper into social media, those kinds of things. Again, recognizing that influencers are really a fairly formal type of partner in referring and they may have come in on that affiliate sort of wavelength, but they're really kind of becoming part of the referral piece. And so there more and more tools to be able to capture the leads in a low friction passive way in the platforms that they're already operating. So a wider range of those, very much a lot of social media tethers. And second, again, on the low friction sort of talk track, there is ways to bring in referrals and those leads earlier in the relationship cycle between the vendor and these referral partners. So when you have these first-time referral partners that it's their first opportunistic lead, they don't necessarily have to go through a full formal registration type process to establish the relationship. They can bring you those leads as soon as they have them opportunistically, and then sort of pause the formality of the partnership creation until that actually turns into revenue. So those are probably the two areas. Again, all about low friction and ease of bringing those referral partners into the fold.
Okay. All right, time for one more question. We'll throw it here. What are the benefits of having a dedicated referral object for managing referral and affiliate partners? So we touched on this a little bit, right? It's a totally different motion, and leveraging a separate object technically within the platform allows a whole different set of workflows, how you pass that record into your CRM, because the vast majority of our customers are integrating the PRM into a CRM in some way. So whether you want that to appear as a lead or an opportunity or a custom object or whatever it may be, I think it just really provides that flexibility is how I see it, at least. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, the other thing is, a referral by nature is meant to be ultimately developed and sold by your direct sales team, often case, or maybe even another reseller type partner. But those are leads coming in, and they're going to be worked by an existing incumbent, already established and hopefully already effective sales motion. And so there's having the separate object allows you to attach it to that for attribution visibility perspective, but without having to alter that already existing or influence that existing process. So you don't mess with anything that's already working. You simply attach to it. And then you're not bloating up those existing processes or with additional data and fields and those kinds of things. Keeps a nice clean separation. The business is usable for the people who are receiving and working those leads, and really it's just attribution for those who are giving them.
All right, well, that's all the time we have. Appreciate everybody for joining us, or if you're watching the recording. This has been yet another wonderful episode, and appreciate you coming on, Gary, to help us out.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, till next time, everybody.